big stunner, 100. You stupid, just shut up. Keep breezy, I'm big boy, done.
John.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Episode 13.
We're going. Baker's dozen.
Wednesday morning after the election, depending on where you are in the world, where you are in life, and your points of view, that may or may not be a happy day. For me, it's a rough one, given the community I grew up in. So seeing a Donald Trump win, quite frankly, is a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, if you've listened to any of the previous episodes, for me, you've learned how I have kind of a 13-year-old's view on politics. And so I got the He-Man figures out today and the Legos, and I'm just playing in the sandbox. No,
I'm trying to do that. That's where I am. You know, in the last time it's happened, because a lot of people who know me know that I think at a very high level. I think very globally. I'm very connected to humanity. It's just the way my brain works. I often say the things that keep me awake are these big global things, are big things that matter to humanity. Those are things that keep me awake. And I understand people can't understand that, just like I can't understand what probably keeps most people awake at night are little things like their job, family, stuff like that. Where that stuff is like, for me, it's the big things. And it's just the way we're wired. So, it's a little tougher for me and people with my type of mind right now when you see what's going on. And I'm taking a different approach to it. I'm trying to take more of an approach of just taking care of my own health and the people around me. So I'm going to lean in to the beautiful things in life, man. I'm going to watch basketball as much as I can. The NBA, I'm loving the season so far. It's been great. Steph Curry is my wife's a Warriors fan, which means I'm a Warriors fan.
Yeah, for sure.
So we watch the Warriors pretty much every time. And
that's so
Sacramento
cool that
Kings
Tammy
well.
loves the Warriors, because like you guys get basketball together and that you share in that.
Here's a tip. So if you have a wife, and if you have a partner who's not that into sports at all, what helps is story. Mm-hmm. So if you can focus on a team and make that your team, and that person can get to know the players, it's often easier for them to engage and enjoy the sport. So my wife likes to watch the Warriors because she knows the players, and so much so that now she's taking the time to get to know some of the new players. Buddy Hield now plays for the Warriors. A lot of people didn't really know if you were around the Big 12 in Texas. You remember from college.
Oh,
he was in Oklahoma.
He tore it up, man. Great shooter.
He's from the Bahamas. He's hard to understand because he speaks with that kind of Bahamian accent.
I think he's underrated. He's flown under the radar, man. I don't know if we've seen the best of him yet.
It's crazy. I think it's probably because he's not a great ball handler, is what I've noticed. But he's who's made the most threes in the last 5 years in the NBA?
Oh, no, sorry.
In the last 5 years in the NBA, the
everybody wants to say, because Steph Curry, everybody wants to say Steph Curry, of course.
Buddy Hield and Steph Curry.
Yeah.
So where you say, well, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry were the best 3-point shooters on the same team. They weren't, but they are now. They're jacking over 40 threes a game.
Right. I thought insane. When you were asking who's made the most threes, maybe this is one of those weird current season stats. Because I saw some conversation between Draymond and Buddy Hield about shooting the threes. And so maybe I thought that may have been the case. But
no, Draymond's underrated. He shoots nearly 40%, which is great. But so we're leaning into basketball. I'm watching a lot of hoops, so I'm excited. I watched the Sacramento Kings a bunch. I grew up in Sacramento,
man, I love that team with Chris Webber and Vlade and Bibby, and they were so awesome. Close. They were so close, man, and they put a fight every time they played the Lakers. Much watch TV.
That was good basketball, and basketball's good again. Oklahoma is fun to watch. They're young and vibrant.
Gotta love Anthony Edwards' energy and what he's bringing right now. I know he's the league's wanting to make just everything Anthony Edwards. Lonzo Ball seems like he's like handling the ball. He's got some swag on the court, doing some sweet things, even though I'm not a huge fan of his, but he's growing on me. But
LaMelo is
what I meant to say.
LaMelo.
I said Lonzo. LaMelo. They're Ball brothers.
Lonzo's okay. LaMelo's the better of the Ball brothers.
That's what I meant to say,
And so it's fun. There's good characters.
I love Wemby too. I gotta throw that out there. Gotta say Wemby, bro.
If Wemby's on, I like to watch. He's just a freak of nature. Awesome. I love watching guys drive into the paint, and then Wemby's there, and then you can consciously watch. You can see them consciously make this decision to be like, yeah, nah, and back out.
Love it or hate it. Love it or hate it. The Luka magic is real. It's real. Love it or hate it.
Luka's impressive. Is there.
Yeah.
He can stay healthy, and I think he had the same problem that James Harden had. Was they rely on him so much, but by the time, even if they make it to the playoffs, it's such a grind. They just starts falling apart. So I wouldn't bet on Dallas because of that.
Sure. I wouldn't bet on them
Kyrie
anyways,
helps,
but I love them. Yeah.
We'll see. It's going to be a fun year for basketball. College started up this week. The men's and women's games, it was the first games allowed were this Monday. So there was a bunch of games. I caught a few. So excited about that. I'll go to tons of college games. So basketball, I'm going to lean into that. As I look at this next few months as a new administration takes over, I'm going to lean into basketball, and I'm going to lean into music and movies and art. And
anything outdoors?
Outdoors are tough because
is it getting cold or
it's cold? It gets dark. Maybe I hope we can get some snowboarding in this winter. We didn't last winter just because we just weren't in a place to in terms of time. But yeah, with the travel for basketball, I have a van that's an office, and I'll bring my bikes and be able to ride my bike in some better weather as I go down to Arizona and California to watch basketball. So yeah, now hoping to get outdoors a little bit more than we did last winter. But yeah, I want to get into some music, get to some shows, and just lean into the beautiful things, my friends, get some cool food, all that stuff. So I'm really trying to take the opportunity to just ignore politics, ignore this, because I can't change it.
Yeah.
I know it's going to affect a lot of people I love in a negative way, just like it did the last time around. And so I am, second person to a lot of that. And I hate that, but I'm no use to even them to help them if I'm not healthy. So I'm going to take care of myself, take care of my family, take care of my friends, all the things I can control, try to lean into those.
I think that's one of the biggest things, man, like with what we're trying to have this conversation about every week, is it's those things, the beautiful things, the things that are offered, these expressions in culture, whatever it may be, whether, what I see art through everything, whether it's through basketball, through, literal art, through music, through film, and the stuff that comes into our lives that just eats away at us, whether it's the big things or the little things, if it's, global stuff happening that really you care about, or if it is like a relational thing with a person in a cubicle next to you that creates all that anxiety and stress, or, if we stay in tune with those beautiful things and within culture, within art, I think that's the secret fuel that gives us what we need to be present in ourselves, to then show up to these things around us, which is the best that we can be. And so these like today and like politics has a high potential to be a distraction, to pull away from the things that we need. Like, because we get hung up on the thing we disagree with, that these decisions are being made, these, policies are being put into place that don't fit in line with our core values. And that's what it gets so messy, because everybody's different. Everybody has different core values. Everybody, values different things. And so it's so hard because it creates so much disunity. And I think that within ourselves as humans, it's like we get lost and hurt in that, and then we can't show up, it starts eating away at us. So
and that's where I am. I want to be present with myself, with my family first and foremost, and friends, and that's really key. This thing worst case might happen, but until that happens, I am going to continue to love myself and the people around me. And try to make sure I'm having fun. Like that's it. Like you said, that's a big reason we started this podcast, was we wanted to keep each other accountable, to make sure we're leaning into these things that do matter. These are the things that matter. politics, they don't matter. I mean, they affect us in ways. I get that. But in terms of my personal health and my enjoyment of the human experience, I need to make sure I put the time in on this stuff, on the beautiful things. So that's
For sure, man.
That's my take.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. So, but you had homework this week.
I did. Yeah.
On an album from 2016. So an 8-year-old album, Paul Banks of
Interpol.
Interpol. I always get them confused with the Snow Patrol or Arctic Monkeys. Interpol, Paul Banks, Interpol, and the RZA of Wu-Tang did kind of a mashup album, and it's called Anything But Words. The group is Banks and Steels, and that was your homework this last week, to listen to that from top to bottom and really sink your teeth into it. What'd you think? Tell me about Anything But Words.
So I'm not super familiar with Interpol, and I'm familiar with the name. Like when I went back, I clicked on some of their songs. I'm like, I feel like I should know their music, but I don't. Like I couldn't pick the
They were happening in that same era. You know, I think Arcade Fire was taking all the thunder in that kind of alternative.
Arcade Fire, man.
Yeah, and so they were kind of in that space. They were kind of lower down the bill, if you will.
Yeah. And less out there. I mean, pretty straightforward. Like they're when I listen to their music, I can hear it in this album, where you got your typical verse and chorus, and it kind of just goes and it's clear, and then the song feels very similar with each of their songs. But that was right off the bat. I thought, man, I feel like I should know Interpol because I've heard their name, and I was like, man, so. I listened to it back then. I remember when it came out, you were excited about it, and I forgot, about them. And listening through it, I feel like the song is the shelf life it's there, like it's held up well.
It's aged well.
It's aged well. And as I was listening, I felt a connection to, in some ways, I'm not saying they're exactly the same. I felt like they could fit really well, like on a festival type weekend together. I feel like they're similar to Gorillaz in a way of like, you could go to Wendy's or you could go to McDonald's. They're different, but they're kind of the same. Like his voice, Banks' voice is similar in some ways.
It's got a nice little rasp to it. But
less funky and creative, hands up for sure. But there were elements of it that made me think of them because they incorporated,
I
the
can
rap.
see that he has the same kind of timbre as
it's like
Damon Albarn, where they both kind of have that little rasp.
Yeah,
and they're kind of singing a similar register, so I can see that.
Yeah. That might be my review, is that Banks and Steels reminds me of they're in the remake of the movie about the gorillas, like they're the ones.
It's got poppy and guitar and some good vocals and some just stellar rapping on top of that. But
I didn't get there. there. The bars go hard from RZA. He goes hard, man. Like he means what he says, and he comes at you. And I enjoyed listening back and feeling like, man, he's going at it. So I went back to Over and Over, Giant. That song is the banger on the album.
That's the banger. Yeah, it's the opener. Yep.
That song's great. It hyped me up. Like I thought, man, I'm going to put this song on in the driveway next time we're playing basketball. Like
when that album came out and I first started listening to it, I'm like, that's the song that's going to take over sports stadiums. And it never did. And it's got like some cuss words in it, but it's not it's pretty mild. Yeah. And it's easy to cut out. I'm sure an edited version you'd hardly notice.
Yeah. I think at the end of the song, it gets a little cheesy of kind of like a political, like he's preaching political injustice a little bit at the end. It's a little cheesy, but it ties into, that's the purpose of the song. So, it's meaningful, but that
couple slow jams on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple slow jams. Mm-hmm. What'd you think of some of the slower joints on there?
Yeah. Awesome. Very melodic. and those melodies, even within the guitar, that's the other piece I had to throw in there.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the usage of musical instruments mixed in with the electric, just the beats, the synth, the other work. I'm always going to have an appreciation for a guitar, a bass, and drums. If you work that into your music, that's a big win for me, because it's easy. I think I want to say it's easy to mix. It's not. It's very hard. And to get an awesome mix when you're doing it right is like magic. It's like a wizard just doing, just mythical things on, turning the knobs.
Live, it makes sense. I did see this band live at ACL, and it didn't work. Maybe it was the time of day. They were lower on the bill, so it was still kind of afternoon. But I think my big issue was it was probably one of their first shows as Banks and Steels. I don't think they didn't do a tour. They just did some shows. But the RZA plays keyboard on the album, and he played keyboard live. So the RZA I feel like he's in prison behind a keyboard the whole show. Yeah. I want to see him like I see him when at a Wu-Tang show. I want to see him. He
has to be at the very front of the stage.
And he can't musically, it was fine. Like it came off fine. Like Paul Banks has the kind of voice that translates live just as well as the album. But the RZA, I felt like he was in handcuffs. And so the energy that I want from him, especially at a festival outdoor like that, big crowd, it just didn't translate.
Right.
But some cool tracks on there. I think the other one I really like is Wild Season. Yeah. It has Florence Welch on there. Florence and the Machine just puts a great vocal on it. Kind of a slow jam.
I like that one.
Ghostface Killah makes an appearance, so he leans into the woods, and then Method Man as well is on a track there, and then Cool Keith early on. But I think, I kind of go back and forth between either Mad Season or Speedway Sonora is one of the songs I like as well. It's kind of in that mid space. It's not as slow, but Speedway Sonora has a great vocal from Paul Banks, and just the hip hop goes hard, and then you can sing along. It's a really cool album. I think underrated. And it was, so 2016. I mean, we've really started to commit to streaming at that point. And so getting noticed and having a big hit outside of what's normal is very difficult. But kind of like I said last week, one of the last great rapcore, if I could, albums.
Enjoyed the homework. I put it on and I turned it way up, and I went back and listened to Giant. So for me, my review is great band, man. And it flew under radar. And if you missed it, go find it. And for my recommendation, put on Giant and then put on Mad Season after that. But I feel like that song Giant, if you want a song that's just going to pump you up and get you going, and you're going to feel it, and you're going to be driving like, turn it up and get it and listen. It's awesome.
I thought for sure when this album came out that would be rocking stadiums all over the country, and I'm bummed it didn't. It should have. Did you expose your kids this all? They hear any of this?
Not yet. No. I didn't do a lot of driving with my kids this weekend or like past week, so I will though.
See if they're down. It's old school hip hop with some rock, so it's probably different, but So I got some cool homework for you coming up, but I had a neat interview. How was the scene? What, shows you were going to, like in high school and college, like the local scene, what was that like? Did you grow up going to shows where it was just local bands or bands that were very, or at least regional at best? They weren't big acts. You were playing in small rooms. Did you go to some of that stuff?
Dude, I grew up in Austin. And so that was always happening. And I even, had the luxury of friends who were playing in some of these venues, and so I would go watch them. And there are some really great venues in Austin, and since then Austin has just, if you look at the pictures of the skyline from 95 to today, it's just not even the same.
Looks like a city now.
But then, there were a lot of cool venues, hole in the wall places that became, well known, like the Liberty Lunch, the La Zona Rosa, even the Austin Music Hall, to Emos, to Antones, to the, Black Eye Cat, to Stubbs. All these places got a chance to see bands all through the years. And then even take those a step down, you go down to 6th Street, every bar wants to have people playing music in there. It's just a way to, sell more alcohol and make some more money. And so it creates opportunities for musicians. And then, the scene was vibrant, man. You could go drop a whole bunch of money and go see people at the time it was the Frank Irwin Center, the drum, but they've torn that down and, went high level with the Moody Center, which is an amazing venue, amazing place to catch some hoops or any kind of sporting event.
I watched the Gorillas at the Moody, and it was a great venue.
I bet. It is so cool. And so it was, dude, very great experience. The shows you could go see at Liberty Lunch in La Zona Rosa are kind of those mid-level bands that are on the up and comers.
Drop some names. What bands were you catching?
So Clutch was a band I saw a couple of times.
What kind of genre is a Clutch?
Clutch is just like, I'm gonna just drive this, rock and roll kind of metal right over your face. Like it, and they do have a bit. They do have a political movement to it. Like a Government Mule opened for them. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. La Zona Rosa. Man, like I saw Goldfinger. They're
kind of a ska. The Goldfinger, right? Yeah.
Well, I had a friend who was
they were on a Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Yeah. They were like the first level, the first track. That's a Goldfinger song.
I had a friend who was in a ska band. And so like when I mentioned these names, there's a lot of bands under these bands that would travel with them. And if you were fans of these bands, you could go see them. But then, and it was just all the other, man, I'm kind of drawing a blank, but I saw so many shows at these places over the years. Antone's was the place to go see Bob Schneider.
Did you ever get to see a little local band or artist that, it was just maybe DIY or really small venue, and then eventually they kind of popped, they made it?
Yeah.
Did you ever have one of that experience?
Well, I mean, I want to say Bob Schneider, but he just became like the beloved, like,
Bob Schneider is a phenomenon. And if you're not from Austin, you might not know. And I don't know if this is still the case, but a great songwriter, great entertainer. I was there for the kind of the Lovely Creatures era, which is probably my favorite Bob Schneider album. He's, people say genre defying or genre bending. He doesn't fit into a genre. I think he has some rap tracks he's done as well, and some country and singers. He just kind of does whatever. But here's the thing about Bob as a phenomenon. At his peak, during that time, probably 2005 to maybe 2015, Bob Schneider could sell out the biggest venue in Austin, Irwin Center, 20,000 people, I think, maybe 18,000 people fit in there for a show, sell it out. Mm-hmm. The next day, he could fly out to the West Coast and go to LA and wouldn't be able to fill a 500
coffee
seat
house. Yeah.
It's the epitome of a local phenomenon, Bob Schneider. I still listen to a lot of his stuff on regular.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was into, coming from skate and surf culture, I was into punk. And so not just the local small venues, but the DIY stuff, the backyard shows, or, we're just going to do a show at the skate park, awesome. And some of that kind of stuff, just raw punk. One story, I got to see Beastie Boys, who played they named themselves Quasar, and they played all their punk stuff. A lot of people might not realize that the Beastie Boys were punk originally. They were a punk band. You can grab their old stuff. They have an album called Some Old Bullshit, and it's just all their punk stuff. So there's a few of their punk. You get some looks at their punk in Check Your Head and Ill Communication, because they put that on the albums. But they did 2 shows in Northern California, one at a skate park and one like at a snowboard event. And it was they called themselves Quasar. And I don't know how I got wind of it. So this is kind of one of those things. If you're connected to your local scene back then, you got some of these opportunities, and you just had to say yes to everything and just show up. And someone's like, I think we got to go to this Quasar thing. I don't know what it is. And so it was like, I think it was $8. Went in there. Dude, and they start playing, and awesome. The Beastie Boys are playing all their punk stuff. And at the time, we really didn't know any of that music, but it was badass. Word started getting out. This is no social media, so I think people started like calling. Maybe a few rich kids might have had a cell phone, because you're talking. This is like 1995, maybe 96 at best. And so when we get out of there, there's like 1,000 people out in the parking lot who were trying to get in. Like the word got out around the city. It was pretty awesome, but. the band that made it, that was the local band when I was in high school, was Cake.
Oh yeah.
Cake was the local band in Sacramento, and I remember seeing there was.
Do they have all the horns?
Yeah, no, they've
the trumpet.
Their sound has not changed from, you can listen to their first album to their latest album. Their sound is the same. It's basic kind of talk singing. You know, and I love Cake. It's important to me. Yeah,
me too. Yeah.
Especially that first album, Motorcade of Generosity. Mm-hmm. They were the local band. You go see them for $8 at a place called the Cattle Club, which was just a little small venue. I think you might be able to pack 800 people in there, 600 people. It wasn't big. And so that was cool. You go see them, and then to see them right as I went off to college, thinking nobody's really heard of Cake, they're just a local band. They had that first hit single, which was, probably a year or two after the album came out, was Rock and Roll Lifestyle. I think started taking off around 95, 96. I think that album came out in 92. Really neat. But then I go to San Diego, and this is where we're going to get to the interview here on this one. So I go to college in 96 to go to in San Diego, go there to play basketball. At that point, I really, over the last year, my junior and senior year of high school, I was going to a lot of shows, and just music was my thing, going to the record stores and driving to San Francisco to go to shows. Just loved it, and connected immediately when I got to college with some people who were like-minded in terms of music, including someone local. And it's like a Friday night, Friday afternoon, they're like, hey, we're going to this show. There's this band. They're pretty good. I think it was like $4, and it was like in a junior high gym. And there's this band called POD that's playing.
Yeah.
And so we go, and the opening act is a band called Dogwood. Now, I grow up on the first CD I had. So when we transitioned from tapes to CD, I bought it in 1989. It is No Control by Bad Religion. It's my favorite punk album all time.
My first CD I ever bought was Hammer Don't Hurt Me by MC Hammer.
Please, Hammer Don't Hurt Me.
yeah, Please Hammer Don't Hurt Me. That was the first CD I ever bought.
Well, we don't make mistakes. But that Pennywise, Bad Religion, like that kind of punk, No Effects, which is, if you know those bands, you know those bands. If you don't, you don't. Yeah, there's a band opening for this band that I go to. Is freshman in college. I'm in this little gym, and they're called Dogwood. And lead singer, it reminds me a lot of the lead singer of Future Islands, because he's giving blood on stage. Josh is up there just slaying it. And I don't know the songs, but like after a couple songs, I'm all in. My shirt is off. I'm in the pit. I'm sweating and just loving it, as it's soon to be 19-year-old, just out there, just going hard. And if I don't know your music, you gotta give blood on stage. And he was doing this, and I was locked in. After the show, I remember, or after they played, I remember having to go outside to cool off. And, their drummer at the time, Sean, was out there, and Josh was out there just chopping it up. Hey, that was awesome. Picked up their CD in the moment, their first one, which is called Good Old Days, and it was just kind of this, they were kind of had a sarcastic, humorous vibe to them, but they also went hard. Like the music was hard. I don't even really remember the POD set. I remember they were amazing. Like it was rad. And they had a rapper on there that did one track with them called Dirt. And I became a fan of his stuff, which maybe we'll get him on at some point.
Yeah.
So Josh just won me over. And then we went to shows as much as I could. I got involved in the scene in San Diego. I started working with a production team that was doing events, and I was doing video. So I was on stage at shows as they started to get bigger, both Dogwood, POD, some of the other bands, NIV, Project 86, Pack 217, like this whole kind of hardcore punk scene in San Diego. I started getting involved in it. So I'm on stage with cameras. I remember one of the last shows in San Diego I went to, would have been around 2000 or so. It was a show where POD wasn't on the bill, but it was a pretty big bill, with Dogwood on there and doing their thing, and some of the other local, hard rocking bands. And POD showed up to decide to do a show. And it was at that show that they let everyone know that we got a record deal.
Oh,
and they had all the new amps and new guitars. You could tell, like, Sonny, you could tell, like,
a party.
We had a new kit, it was like
a celebration.
It was pretty rad, like, to see our boys have made it,
That's
and then
cool.
like a month later, they had already booked a show. It was kind of this hybrid where it was like I think it was in a church, and it was upstairs was going to be the rock, kind of hard rock and stuff. And then downstairs was like DJs and hip hop.
Oh, wow.
And POD was on the bill, but I think their first single broke. It just come out, the video.
Oh, wow.
I forget which one that was,
Fundamentals of
Southtown or something like that.
Yeah.
That first single off their album after their deal. And the place couldn't handle it. It was too many people in there. POD asked everyone had to sit down for the show because
how do you sit down at a POD show? You got to be jumping off of people's shoulders.
Downstairs, the ceiling was caving in. They were going to break the building. So like we can't. We got to.
Yeah,
so that was it was pretty cool to be a part of that. And Josh saw Dogwood a few times. They actually came out to Kauai, Hawaii, when I lived there.
Very cool.
In 2002, that would have been the last time I believe I saw them, and they rocked freaking hard. Locals loved it. It was awesome. Fast forward to now, about a month or two ago, Dogwood got the band back together to play a festival in Alabama called Furnace Fest. One of my boys, the boys I've been mentoring since they were kids. I've mentored kids that are now, they have families of their own. And they're kind of starting their careers. And I took them to Dogwood shows, and he's at a show and it's live. And I'm like, no way, they're still going. And we had just, started the podcast, and we wanted to talk to some people. And, so I've been following Josh on Instagram and what he's doing. And he's now a chef, which makes perfect sense.
Very cool.
And so I'm like, let's talk. So I hit him up, and he hit me back, and he was like, how about today? So the day the day he got back to me, it was just like, let's go. So we had a great conversation about this,
can't wait to hear it.
Staying connected to art, creating your art, still putting your stuff out there. And he has his own podcast, and the links will all be in the show notes. It's the Family Cast. He's got his own song as the song for the podcast, and it goes, music and food is life. And so he's a great conversation. We could have talked for hours. It was tough to shut it down at like an hour and a half that we talked.
Oh man.
I can't imagine we'll probably talk again.
Let's go.
But
let's do this.
It represents the future. It kind of reminded me of Panchico. We're like, you can still make art that has an impact on people, even though it's not your full-time job. I think that might be some of the future of music, where we really get into niches of music where that's not their full-time job. They just do
but I would assume too, even in that, there might be a level of purity that exists of like, I'm not doing this anymore for anything other than just what's in me, and I need to get this thing out. Yeah. So that might be some good stuff. Like, and as opposed to just trying to make something for other people. So.
That's it. So Josh Kemble, his interview, listen to this. All right. I am here with Josh Kemble.
Hello.
I don't know how to describe you, a man of many talents, food, music.
Yeah.
If someone asks you, you're having the elevator talk, and they say, what do you do? What's the 30-second answer to what does Josh do?
I think I boiled it down. I think I figured out that I'm a husband, a father, a musician, a chef, and those are the main ones. Of course, I'm a son and a brother also, but the main first easy ones is husband, father, musician, chef. Sometimes in no particular order, but those are the main ones on a daily basis.
That's awesome. Well, let me set up this conversation for the people listening. Where I first saw Josh, and Josh and I have been riffing for about 2 minutes, so he knows nothing about me, but I know probably more about him. I've probably been around him more than he can ever remember. But so it's got to be like fall of 1996. I'm a freshman in college. I've moved from NorCal to SoCal, and music's my passion. I'm a skate punk, surf punk, rebel, just whatever. And of course, for what I don't even remember how, someone's like, hey, there's this show. It's like at a middle school gym, and it's like $4. And there's this band, POD. They're coming up, and I was always in the local scene in Sacramento and in the Bay Area where I grew up as well.
Yeah.
So going to shows was normal for me. Like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. And opening was Dogwood.
Hey.
And it's Josh's band. And I don't care what genre of music it is, but live, if you're giving blood on stage, and you're just totally locked in,
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm all in. Like I've seen Bruce Hornsby do this, and it's amazing.
Exactly.
And I don't care how good you are, but if you're not up there, just giving it to the audience and giving them an experience where it's immersive. And I saw this guy, Josh Kemble, and the Sonics was right in my wheelhouse, because I'm, one of my desert island discs that I will take to the grave is probably Bad Religion's '89 album, No Control. Pennywise is in my space, and Dogwood was similar. It's kind of that, what I would always describe as like a West Coast punk, where it's a little more sing-alongable than like, your Dead Kennedys and your East Coast kind of more hardcore punk that a lot of people are aware of when you just say punk. And I'm like, I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah.
I was going hard. My shirt was off in 20 minutes, just drenched in sweat. I was cooked.
Sounds like a good show.
And the POD goes on. I go out in the parking lot where everybody's cooling off, trying to get some cool air, and I think I was talking to you and Russell for a little bit, and I was in.
Yeah.
And so I was like, whenever Dogwood's playing, if I'm not off doing something, I'm in. So that's where I met this guy. Yeah. So that said, give me the Dogwood Inception story.
Oh, wow. So
as best you can recall.
As best I can. It's a funny story, because Dogwood's kind of my first and only band, basically, that I've really done seriously and full time and stuff like that. But it started back in, I'm going to say 1993.
Okay.
I was the third or fourth member, I don't remember, to join the group. So they technically it started without me, except there was no songs or shows. So, we hadn't really started. So
right.
I was the fourth recruitment. Josh Hadquist from Beautiful Mistake now, he started the band in school. We started talking to other people. So, and then my friend,
were you guys
Jace,
like in high school at this point, or
he was in high school? Yeah. So I went to high school with him, and my friend Jace, we were in the same like church youth group, like at Calvary Chapel. And our church was like very big into punk and metal and throwing concerts and stuff like that. So we were all growing up in that. All our families were like, concert people and rock and rollers, are being reformed, coming out of, Hell's Angels parties, or like, those kind of secular heathen, that kind of stuff.
Is alternate. Like, did your youth group have that chart in there that was like comparing, like, if you like this band, you should check out this.
Actually, no, I think we knew about that chart at other places, but
it was the worst.
There were so many musicians at the church that they didn't really want to see that comparison. They don't want to be like, well, I don't want to be labeled as the Green Day of, the church or whatever. So I mean, we knew of that though, because we're like, okay, because my voice, you can kind of tell I have a higher timbre, and my voice is like, so I was registering with like the, people like, oh, if you like, they would say that anyways, because I sing like maybe like Fat Mike, maybe like Offspring or whatever.
Yeah.
No effects. So like I was in that genre, maybe because that's how I wanted to sound in the beginning, because I was really young. So I was, I started at the end of high school, straight out of high school, 1993, and we were not good, because
What were you spinning? What was going on in your rotation at that time?
So that was big in the era of the Taylor Steele surf videos,
right?
Momentum.
Yep.
Pennywise got into my consciousness then, and the Fat Records, the Fat Circus tour came through town, and we saw all the bands that were signed to Fat Records at the time, and they were in the video. So there was a Focus world video premiere. So Pennywise was on that, but then there was also this new band called Blink, and they were on that, and Sprung Monkey.
Let me jump in. For those not from the West Coast or surf culture, the Taylor Steele videos were probably the equivalent to like the Bones Brigade videos. Like they were the first to the game to really take video to surfing. And so music was important. That's how we discovered most of the music I listened to. I discovered from skate videos. Yeah,
skating videos. So Streets of Fire, and the I discovered like kind of alternative music was from that, because, like I said, we were musical families, but there was like limits to what you could play in the house as a, in a like a Christian household.
Conservative.
Conservative. So, I got.
Did your mom ever burn your stuff, throw your stuff away?
No, but she highly encouraged me to break it or to not just to, be not of this world kind of thing. I was like, but she was a rock and roller herself. So it was kind of like hard for her to make me not do that, I guess, or make me to whatever burn. So we were always going to rock and roll concerts, whether it was Christian or not, because I was raised with her. She was always going to concerts, and her friends were always dating musicians. So we were backstage at the San Diego Sports Arena, or like with Santana or the Doobie Brothers or stuff like that. All right. So we would end up at parties and biker parties and stuff like that all over like South Bay, National City, and stuff like that. So I was raised in that kind of party culture and rock and roll scene from the get-go in that sense. And then she got, remarried to a gentleman who would put us into the Calvary Chapel Church. And then I started seeing that. And so that's how we grew up in the youth group that had a bunch of musicians and people from the music scene and stuff like that. Like No Innocent Victim was at our church, and some of the members of POD were at our church.
Right.
So like it was all around us. It was all around me growing up. But I was watching Momentum, seeing Pennywise, and then Focus came out. That was another surf one. And then I got this big idea that I wanted to be a pro snowboarder.
Oh.
Right? So
about that time, that was
So because I was seeing, so on the opposite end of Taylor Still, there was Mac Dog, and Mac Dog Productions was the snowboarding equivalent of that, and those soundtracks were epic. And so I discovered all kinds of music that I knew some of it already. And everything that was on that video, I just went out and bought whatever I searched for, whatever it was. So crazy stuff like you never hear of nowadays, like Paw, Cracker Bash, But there was a band from San Diego called Rocket from the Crypt that was on there, and they're still one of my first loves. Like I discovered No Use for a Name and Metallica and Dead Kennedys through those videos, because they were the sequence music when they were crashing. Every time they would crash on the snow, I was like, whoa, okay, I want to be that band that makes the music for that. So the inspiration was kind of backwards. It was like we were watching these skating, surfing, snowboarding videos. The soundtrack was so important on those that it inspired me to want to be that person to make that music. Yeah. Whether it was going to be churchy or not churchy, I didn't care. I wanted to be that, and I wanted to get sponsored by Denny's, and because we were all hanging out there after shows. And then
Denny's was the spot. They're struggling right now. Denny's was the spot in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly.
Kids don't know.
It was the only thing open after a show, so we'd all go there. It was a taco shop, and sometimes the taco shop didn't have enough space for everyone after a concert, so we'd go, okay, well, I'm going to go to Denny's. It's open 24 hours. Maybe I know someone working there, whatever. So my goal was to, jokingly, I'd say a dream of Dogwoods is to be sponsored by Denny's. So we're still searching for that dream, and we're still searching for that sponsorship if you're listening, Denny's. But so that's how it started. And we started out so Jason and I were both in the youth group. Josh Hackquist was playing. We didn't know he was about to go to college. And then so we had this other guy at school, Billy. He played drums, so he was our first drummer. We played a lot for a while. We were called Half Off originally. We changed the name to Dogwood because we found out there was another band. And then when Billy left, when our drummer Billy left, that's when Russell, my cousin, was already a drummer in his own bands around San Diego. And I said, you know what? Do you want to play? Because I have a band. Do you want to play? And he's like,
Russell's your cousin.
Russell is, yeah.
That's new information for me.
Oh, great. See, 25 years later or whatever.
Nice.
So he joined, and then we finally started making some more demos and recording, and we finally got onto local label Rescue Records with POD and No Innocent Victim. And then that's kind of how the whole journey started with recording and touring and stuff like that, was from those people. So I'm still in touch with, Josh Hackquist, of course. He's a really close friend still. After like 30 years, and then Russ is still in the band.
Last time I saw you guys play would have been in 2002 in Kauai, Hawaii.
Yeah,
I was living out there and working.
Okay, yeah,
and you guys played in this gravel parking lot.
I believe it,
under a tent, and all the local mokes came out. And I remember Russell had to yell at the audience, like, you guys got to chill out. Like it was getting, because you don't get a whole lot of that out there.
No, but we made a lot of connections and memories with friends from the Garden Island there, plus most of the islands every time we went there. But I have friends now, like Dark Horse Coffee is from Kauai, and they're in San Diego now. So they have locations here. But I met them in Kauai, and then they're like, oh, I know you because you came to Kauai and nobody came to Kauai.
Right.
And so
I think I saw two shows the entire time I lived there. Dogwood. And then
Spooky
Victor
Tuesday.
Wooten and what's his name? The Ban Lynn guy. Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. That was the two concerts
Okay.
that came to
Oh,
Kauai.
so we were the only punk. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like
I
Virtuoso.
knew there was a couple. We met some bands, other bands like in Maui and the Big Island. So we met some other musicians, but nobody really came from the mainland states to play in the islands that much, that often. So we felt very honored and privileged every time we went out there, even though it was, it's small shows, but they were really fun because everyone was excited.
It was awesome. I think that's what a lot of people, I've been to big shows, I think when I think human experience and just energy in the moment, there's nothing beyond a Rage Against the Machine show. Like the human energy, like nobody can touch that.
I get it. Yeah.
But an intimate punk show with like 100 people that are all completely locked in and just, it just involved. Like that's the same level, and it's less people, but it's incredible. And even in Kauai, it was the same thing. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, I remember almost every show we did there. Like it was, whether it was like a carport, or an actual venue. We played a venue. I think we played like a big church surf contest function, and we were in North Shore during like the Triple Crown, so we got to meet all the pro surfers and hang out at the surf houses, and like just like. Such a good time. Such a random thing for a punk band to be doing. But
did you get onto a video? Did Taylor hook you up?
We never got on a Taylor Steele video. There was talks of him doing another video that we were going to through our pro surfer connections at the time. But then he never really did another video like that.
Yeah, he kind of wrapped up. Is Poor Specimen still around? Like he's doing some other stuff, or
yeah. So it's not the same as like Momentum 1 and 2 and Focus, where we're so pinnacle of that scene that kind of, which is kind of cool because he kind of set the standard for other videographers or whatever, and the scene changed a little bit for video because it was moving into DVD territory and then
internet and all that stuff. I missed that, the death of the skate video and the surf video. Everything's straight to Instagram now, which is cool because you'll see like
it's instant,
some dude hit some gnarly wave or drop this monster hammer that would be like a part ender in a video, and now it just goes viral. And so it's cool, but I miss the days of you had to go to someone's house and they had to put a tape in, and we had to sit there and watch this part to see
or a
Jamie
premiere
Thomas
or a big premiere of something,
But
it was so clever with that because he would release the movie at Soma or at the venue where we would watch the movie and then the band would play, and then you watch another segment and the pro surfer would come out or whatever, or it would be Tony Hawk or some, whatever the case may be. But it was such a good juxtaposition of the music and the movie and the concert itself. It was amazing.
They were all together. It was a culture. I do miss that when I tell my son's getting into skateboarding now.
Good.
And it was like, for me, I always say it saved my life. Like the reason I'm not dead is because I rode a skateboard. But
if it didn't kill you, it saved you.
It just, it was the one time my mind was quiet, so, and then surfboard later. But like where was I going? It was a good thought. I was saying that, it's the culture, the community that comes with that kind of sport. I think surfing and skateboarding had a lot in common. And the music and everything that came together with it was, I miss that. It's starting to happen again. I see it, but it's a little more compartmentalized. It's not like there's one source, like we're all waiting for this one video or this one, event. It's a little different, but man, I miss it. So question, in that vein, where are you on Social Distortion? I know they're contentious in terms of
Social Distortion. Wow. Yeah. I just saw them because they toured with Bad Religion. And I took my son. Yeah. And I was like, so they were playing after Bad Religion. So it was they call it co-headlining, but like I was thinking about it, I was like, they have like tons and tons of radio hits, to be honest. They're kind of like for a punk band or Southern California or whatever genre you want to
I don't know what their genre is.
They're all over the radio. And
they were.
They were. But yeah, and then I don't think I've ever seen them live before this last show I just saw, to be honest. They've been playing since 1980, but I never saw them live. I just know their songs.
And they still go hard, right?
They go hard. They definitely look aged. Yeah. But they are still, the songs are awesome. The crowd knows all the songs. And even if you don't know it, you probably know a Social Distortion song, right? Yeah. And they do, because a lot of, they're covers, or he has riffs that sound like other bands, like you can tell, like, well, okay, that's a Descendants riff or whatever. But I think that I like them. I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I like their songs.
But I know a lot of my millennial crew, the millennials, they give me shit about Social Distortion because they hate it, especially the SoCal, San Diego, Orange County
Really?
people. They're like, they're garbage. Like they make fun of them all the time. Like I get it. They're pretty narrow. Like they kind of do one thing. They're like the AC/DC of their genre.
Exactly. That's a good way
But
to put
like
it, yeah.
they were important at the time, you know, like being in a Taylor Steele video is kind of the first time I heard it.
Right.
And I was all in. So really, I'm okay with Social Distortion. I'll put some on every once.
I think if a band now covered Social Distortion songs that were popular, like "Reach for the Sky" or "Tomorrow Never Comes," or that's the same song, but something like that. If they covered it, it would sound cool. If
I
a
could
band
see
now did it,
that.
because I mean, Mike Ness has that certain voice that tends to work well with that song, those songs or whatever, because like the growl. So I wouldn't. His voice might not work with like pop punk, but a pop punk singer could sing a Social Distortion song, I think, or whatever. I don't. You know what I mean? Like it's kind because
you're right.
they're cowboy chords. They're like,
who should cover
chords.
it? Who should do it?
Let's put this out there. Well, I would love to not
see
necessarily
Rise
pop
Against
punk. I was just gonna say Tim. Yeah, Rise Against would be sick, and because I have their covers album where they covered a bunch of stuff, and I have their split with Face to Face, and they covered each other's songs, and it sounds cool when he's not singing necessarily like the hard Rise Against stuff because he has a cool voice. Yeah, he almost has the rasp though that Mike Ness already has, so it's in more in the similar vein.
Maybe it's
more,
too close.
A complementary vein.
Maybe
but
a
to contrast
folk singer.
To contrast it, I would think there would be somebody who doesn't. Maybe, dare I say, Taylor Swift,
right?
Something like that.
That's what we need.
Or Chappelle Roan, or something that's very like.
I was going to say Sarah Cahoon.
Sure, something like somebody who's gonna not make it too indie, but also keep some of the grit, and it'll sound really pretty, you know. So
she's one of my favorite singer-songwriters lately is Sarah Cahoon. She's just beautiful. Like if I want to go sit in my chair in the woods with my dog, I'm listening to Sarah Cahoon, which is something I do now that I live in the Pacific Northwest. That's a thing.
Oh, okay,
just chill in the woods.
Yeah,
because our woods are everywhere. Here, so the woods are down the street. Like I don't.
My brother lives up there now.
Yeah, it's weird. Winter's weird. So I want to kind of pivot from in kind of transition. There's a point somewhere I would assume in Dogwood where you're like, this is it. We've made it. This is my career. What's that feel like? And what are you guys thinking? And what was the moment when you're like, this is more than just our local band. Like this is a thing now.
It was probably playing the gravel parking lot in Kauai. No, just kidding. I don't know. Like that's how you know you've made it. Is when you.
I was like tail end though. I gotta say.
Well, when you play it, I mean, when you get to go to when somebody's like bringing you out to a place like that, like they're saying,
that's important. Yeah.
We don't have shows here like this, so would you come out here and be this person for us?
Yeah.
And we agreed to do it, and then they bring us again. So that's special. I mean, we knew that. We knew that was a special thing where we're going into all these people's houses and eating chili rice with their family and going in the hot tub and hanging out and then surfing all day and then playing at night and then maybe sleeping. I don't know. But we wrote a lot of our music. We wrote a lot of More Than Conquerors record in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we spent so much time out there that we had enough time to go into a practice studio and practice writing songs, we did it at Jeff's house. So that was pretty awesome. And I stay in touch with, all the guys from like Olivia, Engine 9 and stuff like that. Like all those punk bands that were out there that we're homies with.
Long Shot 808. Anybody?
Yeah.
They opened for you.
Shout out 808. Yeah. And there was like Skanabata.
There was an NIV clone locally that was I forget their name.
Theology.
Something in Kauai. Like they opened for you guys, and Long Shot 808, which eventually became Penny Lane. They moved to Portland and tried to give the melodic emo a go. Almost made it. Yeah.
I remember Penny Lane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Small world. And I think so, but I think that, if you're a band that's coming out of high school and you're putting all your money into like the 2-song cassette demo, and then all of a sudden you get signed to a label and they're like, you want to do a CD? You want to do a CD, guys? And we're like, a CD? Yes. Sign me up. So we literally did the contract. Well, there's no contract. We just did it, because we knew that it was POD adjacent, it was involved with their family, and then Known Selected was also on the label, and we would be like the punk band that was on the label, or the skate punk band or whatever, because we were classified as skate punk at the time, right? That's the genre before there started to be so many more sub-genres of, post hardcore and whatever. I don't know. I'm just like
rapcore.
Some people have called NoFX a hardcore band because it's like fast, and those people are in NoFX.
I've gotten too old to care about all that stuff.
I can tell
punk.
that it's not.
I may say East Coast, West Coast about as far as I go on punk.
Like Social Distortion counts as punk rock, right? If Bad Religion says that a band is punk rock, then I'm going to agree with Bad Religion.
That's he's my hero.
That's canon. So if he has a PhD and he started this genre of punk and he wants to say that Social Distortion is punk, then by golly, Social Distortion is punk rock. Yeah. So the doctor has spoken.
Yep.
So
so first album.
Which how far back?
Is it? I mean, I remember first putting the CD on.
That's hilarious.
That's right.
I know this song. I know that song well.
I bet you do.
I wrote that at a telemarketing job when we were getting ready to write the album. I was just writing stuff down. And I was really bad at my job. I wasn't doing my job. I was writing songs.
Yeah.
So I totally wrote that song. But from just coming straight out of youth group, being like, hey, here's a song about a kid doing bad things,
I loved your music because it was just, I kind of had I don't really care too much. I'm just out here to have fun. I'm trying to have as much fun as I can in life, which has always been my mantra. So
it's like almost making fun of ourselves to a degree, like not being too serious about. And even on the album cover of that album, it's like pretty making fun of something.
Golfer, you were ahead of Tyler the Creator with his golf playing.
Yeah, we're the forebears of fashion and industry, but like trying to not be too serious, but like trying to write serious songs so that like maybe it could relate to somebody whose mom said they could only listen to Christian music or whatever. Oops, I cut myself in the kitchen. Who could only listen to certain music or whatever. It's like I'm going to be somewhat approachable by being comedic, but then when you really get into the nitty gritty of my words, I got in a lot of trouble for, ruffling feathers and questioning authority.
This is not good doctrine. It's not theologically.
I got so much trouble with the church, more trouble with the church than not the church,
Yeah.
So,
well, I always appreciate I tell people, I love the messaging behind like Run the Jewels. And I think there's a big, a lot of people miss out on good rap specifically currently, because I think that's where punk rock is happening more in hip hop. There's good truths and there's good social commentary hidden under dick jokes, and some people just can't get past the dick jokes, and they miss the great message that like Killer Mike might have on some political theory. So
he's very smart.
That I've always appreciated that. That's why I've always loved Greg Graffin, because there's layers to what he's saying.
I've said this on many podcasts on the record and interviews that a few things about Greg. I could have a whole podcast just about Greg Graffin and or Bad Religion, and I've done a bunch of episodes about some of their records. But like for me, I think maybe Dogwood wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Bad Religion. So like
I could totally see that
for the naysayers out there of like spirituality and religiosity of Dogwood or my lyrics or anything's beliefs or anything like that. It's like, hey, okay, yeah, I'm speaking from my heart just like he does or whatever. And but I learned more about the Bible from somebody like Greg Graffin than some pastors and stuff like that. I learned more about Jesus because he's so studied in that book, and he's more knowledgeable about just from reading it so much and studying it and maybe arguing about it and writing his own stuff about it, because from the standpoint of, well, what about this viewpoint, or what about this perspective or this story or whatever? It's very poetic the way he talks about stuff in the Bible or whatever. And and I learned about some Bible stuff. Maybe other people have done the same thing. If I can't be the only one that's learned about this Bible story from Greg Graffin, I can't be the only person.
He was on a search as I watch him searching. And I think a lot of where I live now today in my point of view on a God or whatever. I consider myself a deist at this point, and that's about it. Where I believe there's information, there's something that wrote the code that made the universe we exist in. I don't believe that intelligence or God is active in our day-to-day life anymore. It was created, or however that was incepted,
Mm-hmm.
and then stood back. And so I don't. So Greg Graffin's always been a part of how I think. Just his philosophy of origins, if you will, in the way he writes his lyrics is important.
You mean it's like you mean as far as deism, like God or a creator or the whatever happened in the universe, like happened, and then now it's like that
was it.
Thing,
yeah, that's
that
how
entity is kind of watching but not controlling, not bothering.
If it is inactive, is how I would say it.
Just there.
I believe there's an intelligence or a God that created the universe as we see it,
mm-hmm.
but I don't believe that intelligence or God is active in this universe from our at least in any way that we can tell.
Got it.
That's kind of where I am now. So
yeah,
so
it's understandable, I think, for just knowing how we grew up and what we learned or didn't learn or didn't want to know in youth group or church or whatever is like, and then seeing life as we're 20 years older with kids and the world now and the way people yell about everything. It's
I tell the evangelicals
where
I grew
are
up with,
you know,
I tell the people that are like, that I grew up around in that space that like, I don't think I'm at odds with what you believe. I just don't care for all the unnecessary stuff, like specifically to the Christian religion, like the virgin birth. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm looking at what the words of what Jesus said. It doesn't matter if I believe in a virgin birth or not. So who cares? So let me just not even bother. So when I boil it all down and get it down, it's just like, no, I think the intelligence created where we are. I'm thankful for that. That intelligence, from what I can see, is just clearly not involved in it anymore, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
I think I like to say I'm Christian in the sense that I follow the teachings of Jesus Christ.
His teachings are great.
Of who he was as a person, who he was or did things, and he disrupted the church in a lot of ways. And he was like he was the person asking the questions and bothering all the religious people. And I want to be that person. I want to be the person who's ruffling the feathers, because I think it could lead to good things and make people ask questions and make people answer questions, make people give you the answers. And like, I feel like Jesus was a good example of that. So I try to live like that in the sense of, what are the things that he said to do? Love each other and be nice. I could do that.
That's I don't need to go farther than that.
I know. It could be so simple. You can carry 100 chairs every Sunday. That doesn't get you, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, and if whatever is after, that doesn't matter to me necessarily either, because I need to live day to day to make my kids' lives happy and my marriage and my work. Like this, my life here, I would like to live day to day. Like, I mean, I just feel like, if I lived, if the church or Christians or people or whoever lived the way somebody like Jesus lived, the world would maybe not have any problems. I don't know. It's a big thing to say, but like we could, if everybody did that or lived the way they believe, whatever religion
sound like
they
John
believe
Lennon.
in. Could be, yeah. I mean, he was onto something. But he was like, why can't we do that? Why are we so prone to just point and yell and tell people they're wrong when we could tell people, what can I do for you?
As soon as it comes down to transactions, I'm out. As soon as there's like a transaction, I'm out.
Sure, like not necessarily like quid pro quo, but like one of my giftings is teaching, and the other one's hospitality. So
obviously,
yeah. So I'm doing those things in
which
real
I want
life.
to get to. Which I get to.
For sure.
Maybe this is that point.
Sure, whatever you want. I was just saying, like in that regard of deism or create, like there's so much stuff that I still didn't get the answers to, and I'm still looking. Yeah. So I'm like, I ask my pastor friends, I ask my doctor friends, I ask my scientist friends, like, can you?
Are you a reader, Josh?
Yeah.
So here's the book I recommend to people that are on a deep journey of philosophy, and they love to ask the question of just origins. Mm-hmm. It's a book by Dr. Urban Laszlo, and it's called Science in the Akashic Field. So, have you read C.S. Lewis?
I have,
Did you read his space trilogy stuff, the space ones?
Yeah.
So the first one is called Out of the Silent Planet. Honestly, when you look at the Matrix, it kind of feels like it was based on some of the concepts there.
Probably.
But the concept of the universe and a deity in that C.S. Lewis book is that everything is, and this is him not being a scientist, everything is made up of the same basic matter, and it vibrates at different frequencies, and that's how we interact with it, including the intelligence that created the universe, or the God. And that intelligence never vibrates at a frequency anymore that people on Earth can see. But he goes to this other planet, and the intelligence once a year, I guess, slows itself down or puts itself into a frequency that everyone can interact with it for a day or something like that.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah.
Anyway, Urban Laszlo is talking about, you've probably heard the term string theory. So, we know about atoms and neutrons and all the base things. When you get down to the smallest physical elements that are observable in the universe, everything really is made out of the same thing. But you have this thing called dark matter that we can't see. Like, hypothetically, all the data says it exists. But what Urban Laszlo is saying, there has to be a code somewhere. Someone has to have written something down, for lack of a better term, to make this thing work.
Right.
We see the evidence of it. And he's a devout atheist and just says, I don't think there's a God there, but there's information. And so that's kind of it. That's always been something like I can go that far. I can say there's definitely information.
I'm interested
because there's no way this exists chaotically and haphazardly. Something with intelligence had to make us exist. So and I'm happy to. I love it. I love his book. It's deep.
Yeah.
Some heavy science, but science in the Akashic field. Urban Laszlo. Okay. Banger.
Right. So, I will read it.
So Dogwood's happening.
Dogwood's happening.
You think it's this. You have a picture, a dream of where it's going to go. We're going to be playing stadiums, or this is I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be a rich rock star. But at some point, now I look at Josh today. He's doing something which makes complete sense based on the first time I saw him live. Really? Like, this guy is tuned into to his audience, which is what a chef does.
Yeah.
So now you're a chef, which is as punk rock as it gets.
Amen.
Because it really is. And I want to talk about that because I grew up in an industrial kitchen. My mom ran a catering company. So
cool. That's what I do.
I was part of the labor force, involuntarily as a teenager. I've served French onion soup to 800 people and had to cut onions for French onion soup for 800 people.
That's a lot of onions.
And I've done stuff like that. So I've been in the industrial kitchen.
Was that in San Diego?
That was in Northern California.
Okay.
Where I grew up in Sacramento area. But now you're a chef. So where's the food come in here? When did you be like, hey, this is I can serve people, I can give people an experience with my food now. When did you fall in love with that?
Well, I think I always fell in love. I was always in love with food because growing up in the Mexican side of my family, my grandma and grandpa were, actually a lot of people in the family were really good cooks. And my grandpa, I don't know if he was telling the truth or not, but he said he was a chef for some bigwigs in Mexico before they moved here. And then he cooked, and then he was a traveling suit salesman, which I do believe because my mom and my aunt and uncle were all born in different cities around the country. So he would cook for his clients to kind of help sell the product or whatever. He was selling suits, but he was, we'll have dinner and talk about it or whatever. It's this is the olden days of door to door kind of stuff or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Now that I think about it, it's did my grandpa tell anything? Was there any true stories that he's,
Don't doubt Grandpa.
You never know. You never know with grandpas. He could have said, I landed on the moon 6 times, and I'd be like, cool.
Awesome.
We landed on the moon. But he said they're obviously always cooking. And then I spent a lot of my time on, whether it was summer vacation or Christmas vacation or whatever as a kid, in their house and in the kitchen with them when they're making a meal for the whole family, whether it was Sunday dinner or just random day making, beans from scratch or tortillas from scratch or anything like that, without knowing that I was learning, without gleaning that information. Hey, what are you doing right there? What is that? Tell me all about it. I was more just there, osmosis, just getting that, there's a scientific term for you right there without even knowing how chemistry or biology worked.
Osmosis.
Yeah. So I was in the kitchen eating, tasting everything with my grandma always wanted me to taste everything. She had a garden. She's pulling herbs and fruits and stuff out every day to make stupid stuff, whatever. It's like fresh squeezed orange juice. I didn't know how cool that was at the time.
Right.
She had a really antique Mexican orange juice squeezer where you like push it down. It looks like a brontosaurus or something like that.
Did you ever stick a GI Joe in or something in there?
Absolutely. I stuck cats' heads in there. Like whatever. It's like I was a dumb little punk rocker from day one, right? Causing trouble. The ADHD.
I stuck a tennis
no
ball
joke.
in the potato, the fry thing at our restaurant, and it flung across the kitchen and landed in some soup once again.
As long as it didn't like cut it all into French fries and go into someone's in the fryer or something. So yeah, I totally feel like I understand that because there's always these cool gadgets in the kitchen. There's all the things are like toys, like the colander that opens up and closes, the steamer colander, or like the molcajete with the mortar and pestle. That's straight up an Aztec ancient like item that somehow she has, and to me it's like this coolest thing in the world.
So you're fascinated by kind of the mechanics and
I was
tools.
Fascinated by some of the mechanics of it. I think it spoke to that part of my ADD. It's not ADHD at that time. It's ADD, and I was like, oh, I'm going to take these toys out into the yard and play with them or whatever. I get in trouble for that, or so. But then so fast forward to the band, and I'm out here. We got to eat. We got to figure out a way to eat. So we're cooking. We're going to people's houses after the show because we can't afford a hotel or catering we're not that big. And so I'm out there grilling. I'm grilling for a big tour party or whatever. Or if you let us stay at your house, I'll make you breakfast or something like that. I just offer that without even knowing how, really. I was just doing it because I saw the family doing it, or my stepdad, when he was around, he would actually barbecue a lot. So I learned a ton about open fire grilling. And that's one of my specialties to this day.
How much of it was the food on offer was just a letdown, and you're like, we got to do better. like be honest. Was that part of it?
I think it was some part of it without knowing that I said, oh, I could do this better. But just saying like, I don't think I like, honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't think I want to eat pasta or spaghetti tonight, or pasta or pizza tonight. So I'll just scrounge up some money, maybe borrow it from merch for a day, and then go to buy $2 of fast food or something like that. Yeah. And if there's pizza, maybe if there's leftover, we can take it in a van and drive overnight with it or whatever. So trying to be creative. But if you spend a couple of dollars on fast food, if you get the cheap menu at McDonald's, at the time they had a salad, and you get another thing, you kind of shake it all up, make a cool salad, that you can share with people. You're getting a burger, you're getting a chicken sandwich, and I'm getting this. We can here's what we can kind of make out of that.
Or some fast food science.
Fast food science, fast food like fusion a little bit,
What are you making a Wiener Schnitzel?
I didn't see a lot of those on the road actually, but
it's a West Coast kind of thing. Yeah,
it's definitely a West Coast thing, but I think that would have gone a long way because that doesn't go bad either. Like
right, chili cheese fries they're special,
indestructible until you eat them, and then you're not indestructible. So doing that, grilling, figuring out who works at Subway, so we can kind of like cheat a little bit and take extra stamps or whatever, because that's when they had stamps. Yeah, I don't know, just figuring out how to survive.
Yeah,
and figuring out maybe someday if I have the means to do this, I'll give back to bands the way I was given to, because we got a lot. People helped us out a lot, right? We stayed on floors. We did laundry at someone's house. They would buy us, Gold Bond powder at Walmart or whatever.
What?
And so you need that stuff in the summertime.
Make a note of that. Gold Bond powder. Okay.
Gold Bond powder. Bands want it. So nowadays, now that I'm a professional chef and I have the means with which to do so, I can feed touring bands that come through. If I'm available and they're playing on the day that I'm off or have more time, come to my house. I'll feed your tour. I'll make you vegan food if you want vegan food. I'll make you barbecue if you want barbecue, or Mexican food. Nice. If you want. I can do all that stuff now because I learned it. Or I'll bring in my friends who are different chefs and they can do it. And it's been really cool. I've gotten to meet a lot of younger new bands that are on tour that are gaining popularity at my house, like giving them my home.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So it's gone full circle.
Makes
from
perfect
Hawaii
sense to me.
To now, yeah,
makes perfect sense to me. Because I tell people I grew up in a kitchen. I like to same thing. I like to cook for especially when people come over. My wife is fantastic at the day to day, just keeping us fed and alive. And once a week or so, I like to make something amazing. Like I get an idea. So we go to the store.
Nice.
Maybe you have a similar experience. So here's how we go to the grocery store. My wife has a list, which I don't understand. She has a list and she's working through it and she's keeping us alive. And I wander over to produce section and just let the vegetables speak to me. Or maybe I'll go by the deli or go by the meat and see if anything speaks to me. That looks interesting. Then I'll grab it, a papaya, and I go, this looks good. What do I make out of this?
Right.
And then I just wander around until a meal evolves around the papaya.
I like it.
And so I could see it's a perfect fit for any kind of artist and musicians, especially live performers like yourself. It makes complete sense. How do you create? Like, what's your inspiration for food? Like, how do you?
Well, nowadays it's like you said, like social media is so quick and instant. Like if I need inspiration, if I feel like I need inspiration, I could do something like that. Or if I need a quick, I forgot how to make this one sauce, boom, find some recipe and put my own spin on someone else's recipe. Right. Or, I forgot which ingredients are in this because I know how to make this dish or this sauce, but I forgot the couple ingredients. Oh yeah, it's that. So I go to that. I have a lot of cookbooks that I think are really cool in my collection at home.
Yeah.
And also, what's something that like if I want to be inspiring to other cooks in the kitchen, I'd be like, hey, tell me about some time that you were like, what your favorite meal that you had like outside of your house or outside of San Diego, or what kind of. If I take it to the music and food pairing part, I go, hey, what were you listening to when you had your favorite meal, or like what was your favorite liquor drink or whatever event we're doing. Like I work with different brands and stuff like that. Like how do we relate this to someone's experience?
Yeah.
So in my cookbooks, I like the ones that tell stories. I don't like articles online that are super long stories and it says jump to recipe. It's like, it's like because I don't have time. I'm looking for the recipe. Yeah. I didn't come here to read your blog post, but my cookbooks though, I like to have a whole like visual, comic book kind of aspect or like stories of how this dish actually I borrowed from a chef I learned how to cook from in France and I adapted it to our local produce, stuff like that. Those are a really cool story, or if I wrote a cookbook like that, it'd be like, hey, my grandpa used to have a ranch with live animals and I learned about non-pasteurized milk the hard way or something, like different stories.
Give me a dish you've tweaked that comes from a different culture and you're creating that version of it with your own ingredients in the context. Give me a good example.
Yeah. So like I am not a sushi chef, right?
Right.
But I love sushi. I love raw fish, crudo when, there's like there's Mexican versions of it, sashimi and like, scallops, crudo, like anything you can eat raw in Mexican food is really awesome. Some of my friends from Veracruz, they would literally just grab a shrimp out of the water and eat it like that. They would move a rock, move a prawn, just eat it because it's so fresh. It just tastes like water, right? Or whatever.
I dealt with octopus in Kauai one time.
Yeah, exactly.
I was snorkeling, like spearfishing with some dudes, first time ever. Howdy boy out there. Can't catch it. Accidentally speared the wrong fish, like it was illegal. Like I didn't know.
Oh.
They're like, dude, get rid of that. And some dude pulls up with it, just comes up out of the reef with an octopus, rips a tentacle off, takes a big bite, and hands it to me. It was.
He made you do
awesome. It was awesome.
Oh, it was good. It was good. Okay.
It's just kind of salty. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're never gonna forget that experience either.
Yeah.
Typically when because nowadays when they prepare octopus, they kind of like
beat it up,
the salt out of it a little bit, like to get some of that salt out. But you had the real experience, So like, but I think from another culture, I even think that to be honest, like even in America, there's other cultures in barbecue. There's other cultures in like if I was to go to Hawaii and cook with the Hawaiian chefs, because my sous chef, shout out to Joe Fox, he's from Kauai.
Oh wow!
And
wow,
so
okay.
he did Kauai Brewing Company, and he learned he brought a bunch of sushi items to our menu, and so he brought a culture into our menu. So I learned a lot about other cultures, like for example Hawaiian cooking or Hawaiian fusion from Japanese chefs, because Hawaii in itself is kind of a somewhat of a fusion of American cuisine and Japanese and island life, right? And so that coming over here where I'm doing a lot of like Mexican food and, that kind of stuff that maybe other people around here are already doing because we have so much different taco shop choices. And we can do a fine dining with Mexican or cheap dining with Mexican. There's like, you want Mexican or Mexican food or Mexican, you know what I mean? Like, how do you do it differently? How do you stand out? And so adding your own family twist on something like my family,
Yeah.
they really liked fast food Chinese food, Americanized Chinese food, chow mein,
Yeah.
kind of not necessarily Panda Express stuff, but
Orange
like stuff like
chicken.
that. Orange
Yeah.
chicken, whatever. So my grandparents would make chow mein, but they'd put like carne asada in it from the grill,
Ah.
or stuff like that. And so you make a Mexican thing that is definitely inherently ancient Mexican cuisine or whatever, and you're adding it to your favorite food. And so I was just talking on another show about where one of my first job, I was a busboy at a restaurant in Escondido in San Diego. And I was not a cook, but I learned a lot from the cooks there who were from Mexico in an Italian restaurant. So, because we were making everything from scratch.
Yeah.
So Luigi and Maria were the owners, and they were full-on Italians, and they were making everything from scratch, everything from roasting the beans for the espresso and tiramisu from scratch and cheese from scratch and focaccia every day. I learned how to make that. But the Mexican cooks, Alejandro, for example, he was making Mexican focaccia, like putting in jalapenos and barbecue pork and stuff like that in the focaccia, not for sale for the restaurant, but just for us to have.
Just family
meal, and making stuff every day. So every day, because focaccia was from scratch, I got to see how to prepare the dough and stuff like that. And if you want to add ingredients in, here's when you do it, or you do it after if you want to do it like that. So he taught me about how to kind of cook like that as a prep and line cook before I was even cooking, really. So I learned, but some of that stuff from that first job sticks with me now, and how I teach people in the kitchen, and some of the stuff I learned in junior high cooking class sticks with me today in the kitchen too. So it's kind of cool.
Awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, no, I do. I've taken carbonara, which is just a luxurious.
Yeah.
I make a for lack of a better term, Mexican version of it.
Amen.
So I chuck some diced green chilies in the egg mixture with the Parmesan.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
And then use cilantro instead of parsley, and use bacon instead of guanciale. And boom, it's Mexican carbonara. It's probably sacrilegious to Italians, but it's better. It's better, dude. It bangs.
It's like, and then you could say to some Italians, well, it's carbonara inspired dish. It doesn't maybe taste like yours, but it's this version of it.
Yeah. No, I just didn't have the ingredients.
Shut up.
Yeah. No, just like this could be good. And I think that was one thing I've told a lot of people, like some people just can't get beyond learning a recipe.
Right.
But if you learn techniques and those sorts of things, which is just a difference, like with music, I can go online and find the sheet music to play a song, but I won't know how it was constructed. But if I learn the ingredients, I learn how to play scales, I learn how chords go together, I learn how to craft a melody, then I could make music. And I think cooking's very similar, right?
Totally. I think what I learned in punk rock, like doing the band and doing music still, when I'm writing stuff for myself or other people, there shouldn't be so many rules and gatekeeping and stuff like that as far as how an artist should be, like even talking about social distortion or like what's punk, 1, 2, 3, 4, who's punk, what's the score, right? It's like, so what I learned from punk is like, now in cooking, you don't go on a video and say, I'm going to make traditional mole, or I'm going to make traditional carbonara, because someone's going to be like, that's not blah, 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 because my family didn't do that. That's not ceviche because you didn't use this kind of fish. Or, obviously if you go to eat ceviche in Mexico or Spain or Peru, they're going to be completely different. So like, if I say, hey, here's my spin on a traditional dish from your country or whatever, and obviously I'm not from your country, so maybe it's going to be different. Get over it,
Yeah. No, that's huge. I mean, there's always the food fights, whether it's the local restaurant, like when you say, well, the best, the best carne asada burrito in San Diego is at,
that's ongoing.
Gilberto's number 2 in El Cajon. Then you're going to get people mad. No, it's it's the Adalberto's on College Avenue, whatever.
Yep. Or the other one is that's not real barbecue, and that's
right.
around here.
I haven't been in Austin for a while. I raised my kids in Austin, Texas.
Nice. So that's a good style of barbecue, and that's not San Diego barbecue.
There's no sauce. I tell people all the time, like Rudy's is like
it's like smoked, right?
It's like the fast food barbecue in Texas, and I love it. Like it's good enough for me. I've done the wait in line for 2 hours at Franklin, and it is good. It's a religious experience. Like I get it.
It's worth it.
It's worth it. But
one
man,
time. I don't know.
But I did it. I think I've done it twice. But yeah, cool. like you said, like I want to see something different. You know, I want to get your spin on it. I don't care. I've given up on authentic,
Right.
which I think it is a problem. Who cares what's
But
authentic
if
anymore?
it's authentic to that, like if you say you're from Austin, then your barbecue is going to be authentic to Austin, or somewhat more. It's going to taste more like that than say like somebody who's like Phil's barbecue here in San Diego. He's from Cleveland, and he came to San Diego. You know, like. Or what are you going to say? It's Texas barbecue? No, he didn't say Texas barbecue. He said it's his barbecue. His name is on there, and he says it's barbecue because it's cooked like this. Oh, you didn't put it in the ground or in a smoker. That's just grilling. That's not barbecuing. It's like
used more than salt and pepper. You know, you put spices in it.
You guys,
who cares? Was it good?
Yeah. So we got a lot of that with the band too. We got a lot of that in the punk scene. It's like, oh, you guys aren't this way. Or you're not singing about the government. Is like, but I am. I'm just singing it from my own perspective or from somebody else's perspective. I'm trying to be original about it and sing it from certain perspectives and not copy Dead Kennedys or JFA or Bad Religion. I'm not. I want to sound like Bad Religion sometimes, but I don't want to just copy paste repeat.
I'm inspired by them. Yeah.
So why don't you let me do my art, and if you don't like it, go see another band. So people made their voices heard, with message boards and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I was pissing everyone off.
Well, it was a different time back then. I mean, I can imagine. One, I think, for some of the millennials listening, what it took to just get to a CD,
right? Yeah,
was like you had to play local shows and you had to prove yourself. And then you had to get somebody from some record label to show up and go, okay, we'll put some money behind these guys so we can put them in the studio because it costs money. Whereas I could record an album right now, in my basement, for a few $100s in hardware. It's different. I don't think it's a problem, which helps, which kind of guides the conversation where I want to go next, because there's so much out there. There is so much out there. It's numbing. Every genre. I'm learning about new genres all the time, and that's kind of one of the reasons we started this podcast. Is I want to talk to people that are trying really hard to stay connected to new streams of new music, new genres, new bands.
Okay. I am, yeah.
And so, what's your reality look like right now with kids and family and job? What's that look like now? Just so someone can kind of level set. Okay, what's Josh's reality? I
mean, people always ask me how I have time to do stuff with the things that I'm doing in life, but it's like, my kids aren't in diapers now, so they have lives. They have cars, so I don't have to always be doing kid stuff. But when I do have to do it, I do it, and I'm responsible parenting and stuff like that. And I make time. My wife and I go on a date every week, at least once. And I try to go to at least. I try to go. I have 3 concerts on the calendar every week. I don't go to all of them, but I have them on there, so I know. Every week, you're looking at 3 shows every week, potentially. Yeah. Who's coming to town? There's so many venues here. I'm so spoiled. There's so many places to go see a show.
Yeah.
And also, I'm working full time. I work a lot as the chef and stuff like that. But I'm not working every single day. So I take advantage of my time off. I rest a little bit. If you find time to rest in there, like I don't, I sleep okay at night, whatever. I don't sleep well when I sleep, but I sleep a number of hours, whatever. Who cares?
That's a different conversation.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm trying. I'm not staying up all night on my phone or whatever like that. So trying to be healthy, relatively healthy, maybe some working out here, maybe some pickleball there, whatever. But like, I guess it's a matter of using my calendar wisely, knowing, okay, I can do this, this, and this when I'm at work or off work, or when my wife is at work or when the kids are at school or whatever. So, being smart about it, and then basing my time around podcasting and going to concerts, because that's stuff that I want to do. I want to make time for stuff I want to do. And when I'm off and I'm home and I don't want to be doing anything else and I don't want to go anywhere, I have a really rad record collection. I just put records on and just literally listen to records.
Nice.
So which has been awesome for me and the kids.
So in that, and so one thing I'm trying to do is help people stay connected. The thing that really made me want to start this podcast is the countless conversations I had with people in middle age. I'm approaching 50 in middle age. And I say, the things that matter to me, music, movies, books, food, like that's kind of the things I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about football and basic things when I first meet somebody. So I'm always asking, what are you listening to? Seeing any good movies, reading any good books? What restaurants are you digging? And at the music one, that one always hangs up. It's like, well, I really just kind of listened to what I listened to in high school and college. I've stopped. I gave up. And I'm like, the world's music is at your fingertips right now.
Right.
And so
it's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. How are you sifting through the noise? How are you discovering? How are you staying connected to new music specifically?
Well, I give my kids a lot of credit for that. With the newer stuff that they listen to, I ask them, because I don't want to be ignorant to like what they're listening to and what they're about. I feel like I did a good job in the sense with them of taking them to shows and making music important. Part of their life. So we go to all ages venues like Shea Cafe and Soma, as much as we can together, or at least one of the kids out of three.
Which is rare. San Diego has that stuff, but most of the country doesn't have all ages venues. It's a very unique scene.
Yeah. So because I grew up going, when we were first playing and getting popular, one of our hometowns away from San Diego was Chain Reaction at Orange County, right?
Yeah.
In Anaheim, and that was our home away from San Diego. That was like our place, right? Because it's all ages. Literally, their website was allages.com.
Yeah.
And so that was really important. And I saw the value of kids going with their parents to punk rock shows. And so doing that. So I asked them too, like, hey, what are you listening to?
Yeah.
And I made it a point when I started getting back into buying records, buying vinyl and stuff like that. I was going to take my son Rhythm to the record store with me. And I'm going to buy a record for myself. And I'm going to buy you The Clash, London Calling. Right?
Okay.
And it was really...
You'd already picked out like what you think he needs to be part of his journey.
I forced it on him. I agree. I admit that I forced it, but I wanted it, and I was buying it for myself, but I was basically like, this one's yours. It's your first record. It's your first record that you own. It's in our family collection, which is my collection.
Yeah.
And but it's your record. So if you go through here, you'll see, a couple of that I bought for him. And he started buying his own, which were not the Clash, but I have all the Clash records, right? But that one Clash record, London Calling, that's his record, right?
Yeah.
And so they know the value that I put on music and tangible records and stuff like that. And so they sometimes they'll buy me records for a present or whatever if they don't know what to get me, which is cool. I really like that, and I feel like that's a win. And or if they say that they went to a show and I didn't know about it, and I see them on Instagram or whatever at a show, I'm like, yes, that's cool, And my son's driving to like LA for concerts with friends and stuff like that. I'm like, dang, it's in their blood,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so like finding out about other stuff in our scene is like, I'm in touch with, I don't know, partially from the podcast, people send me some stuff to listen to or whatever. So I'm like, cool. So I get to hear new releases or releases from old bands that are doing new stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
And then of course, still in touch with like Tooth and Nail Records, in touch with people there. And then, but like going to all these shows and having bands over at the house and stuff like that, it's like, we are always talking about music and new records and, record store day. And I have a friend who owns a record store. So like, it's just in my cloud, it's in my cloud right here. So it's always there.
You have it at reach. So specific question.
Mm-hmm.
In the last year, what's a band that one of your kids has introduced you to that you're really digging? Like you're like, and it's maybe out of the blue,
Lil Yachty.
Okay.
Yeah. So like he just put out this record, not just put it out, but his most latest release really, I think it really turned the industry on its head for a week.
Yeah.
When it came out, it was because he's hip hop, but the record was very unique. Didn't sound like anything else. He pulled like a Tyler, the Creator, and just kind of like just did his own thing.
I think he's punk rock. Yeah.
It's punk rock to do that. Exactly.
Right.
See, I could just never do a podcast again. I could retire on this sentence. It's like, that is punk rock. Like Rage Against the Machine is a punk rock or a band or a hip hop band. It's not like there's these categories that we're trying to put things in, but it's more of an ethos and a generality of how we view it. Little Yachty doing that, like Questlove, he blew Questlove's mind, and that's hard to do or whatever, like or like during the pandemic, Denzel Curry covered Rage Against the Machine, and that was one of the coolest things of the
like Denzel
music.
Curry.
So like that was cool. So my son is a huge Denzel Curry fan. So his chef, he works in a restaurant too. His chef bought him a Denzel Curry album that he got signed by Denzel Curry. He's like, "What? This is amazing!" So he's like all thankful for the chef, for being in the chef life, because we do that for each other.
No, my son's been my go-to there. He got me on Panchico this year.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an interesting story. It's this band that like a lost local band in Britain, where they put out an album, in 99 or 2000, and then nobody heard it. And they just they went on, got jobs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And around 2020, someone discovers a record, just buys it from the record store and plays it. And it's kind of rotted. Like it's got glitches in it. It doesn't sound right. But it was good enough to where he's like, I dig this, puts it online, rips it down to digital, puts it online, like, help me find this band. So it took like 2 years and they found the band, and now the band is going to put out a new album. It's called Panchico, and it's like shoegaze music, so it's kind of noise rock stuff.
Well, shoegaze is coming back in style too.
It is. That's what I'm saying. Shoegaze is having a moment, so it's perfect timing.
I'm here for
them.
it.
Yeah,
here for it.
No, I dig it.
Seaweed's popular again, and it's just like there's this movement in hardcore right now where some of the bands are not as hardcore, and they're all like post hardcore. Kind of mellowing down, like more like if U2 had screaming or something like that, or
I'm seeing it.
It's fun.
I'm seeing it, and I tell a lot of people, like, if guitars didn't exist, I'm trying to describe Future Islands. I don't know if you've listened to Future Islands, because
totally,
when I think of frontmen, like yourself, who just get up there and they give blood for the audience. I've seen Future Islands live 3 times, and they destroy. And I'm like, and I tell people a lot of times, well, if guitars never existed, this would be what punk rock would sound like. Future Island, like it's just synth bass and just a vocal guy just growling and going. I
think
love it.
A good example of that is maybe, but they have guitar, but like Idols.
They
do stuff like that. IDLES. They're popular, but they're and I would say they classify into punk, but they're definitely like huge right now. And because people are, people don't know that they need punk rock in their life. If that makes sense.
It is. People need to be jarred. And I think that's what excites me. What I'm looking for when I'm listening through music is surprise me. Like, that's what I'm always looking for.
I think that's why I go to the shows too. It's like, because I'll buy a record from a band that I just saw that night or whatever,
And that's my question now. When was the last time you were surprised by sonically, like you heard, whether it was live or someone sent you something digitally, and you're like, you heard this, and you're like, what? Like, whether you liked it or not, even I don't care if you liked it, it surprised you.
I think it happens kind of semi regularly, because I just went to Furnace Fest, so I saw a bunch of bands that I hadn't seen before or whatever. Like a bunch of popular bands were there, a bunch of local bands played, and I was like, okay, there's some really good stuff here. But then, like on a pretty regular basis, our old guitar player Danny, he sends me music like pretty regularly on he'll just text it to me, Apple Music link or whatever, for like Spirit World. It's like a hardcore band, but they have like a cowboy motif, So they open for metal. It's also good. It's good music too.
Yeah.
Or like side projects from bands or stuff like that. So there's tons of music out there that I would never discover if people didn't send it to me. And so I think somebody like if you listen to Spirit World or even what's the other band, sonically, like I forget who it is, but like I remember listening to just stuff that's like kind of like bands who are not punk bands anymore, that are just kind of like not necessarily doing acoustic stuff like the mellow stuff, but like still like
they're evolving.
finding the energy to portray onto a recording, but like capturing energy. So somebody who's still relevant in punk, but who's still like slow and not very like crazy, it would be like Hot Water Music, or like the kind of.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, so like they're slow, but they still have a lot of high energy, And so how do you pull that off as a musician or an artist to portray your energy without being like double time, Tony Hawk Pro Skater kind of stuff,
That's good. No, that's good. No, one I've sent people that I've always like to challenge people to listen to. And lately, in the last few months, it's a band called Black Midi.
Okay.
Out of UK. And, I hear new stuff all the time, like the Panchico kind of shoegaze. I've really been digging, Little Yachty stuff. The Post Malone, his country stuff, I think is punk rock. My wife spins it nonstop. Black Midi, I don't know how to categorize it. And so I've been kind of telling people, please listen to Black Midi and get back to me. I don't even know if I like it, but I am literally laughing when I listen to it because every time a song goes through a change and you can hear the build, it's about to change. And then the change happens. It is nothing like you thought was coming at the change. And I'm like, that's awesome. It's genuine surprise. I'm still working through Black Midi trying to figure it out. My son introduced it to me and
I'll check it out.
It has been one of the more surprising ones.
Is it a genre? Is it in a genre?
Like I said, I cannot even categorize it.
I'll check it out.
And honestly, I don't even know what language the guy speaks sometimes.
That's cool.
What his native language is. I think he's English, but his accent comes off almost as Nordic sometimes. But then he sounds like a lounge singer, and then it goes into metal, and then it's almost techno. It's really weird, and I love it. I love.
I know the band.
I love the ride.
I remember now what band, the new one. I was blown away. Someone, shout out my friend David. He sent Brutus. This band called Brutus.
Okay, spell that. I got to write in the show notes.
Brutus.
Okay, okay.
Brutus. Et tu Brute. So Brutus. So little bit of. I guess it's hard to describe, but it's mostly like female vocals. So it's kind of soothing, but then it's not. It's not necessarily soothing, but she's a really good singer. So it's kind of cool. You should check it out.
I'm linking
some hard stuff.
I'll link some of these up.
Sometimes.
Awesome. So final words. We're at about an hour.
Okay.
What's next? What are you excited about? Where do we eat your food? And where do we listen to your music?
All that stuff. What is next? Next is, I think the latest news for, I guess the latest news for me is
where do I see Dogwood?
Yeah. So I just released my lyric book.
Okay.
I just wrote it, and I was going to do it prior to Furnace Fest, and the Furnace Fest happened, so it kind of worked out really nicely because I could take it with me and talk to people about it. Because we talked and met a lot of people. What you drinking? A little old fashioned.
This is Brook Lottie Distillery from Islay, Scotland. This is their classic Lottie. It's their one unpeated single malt.
Oh, see, my wife hates the peatiness in Scotch.
It's the jam. It is the best bargain
stuff,
in Scottish whiskey.
I'm going to check it out.
For like $70, you got a certified banger.
Jiminy Christmas, I like it. So I think that I just released a lyric book of lyrics, poems, and tour journals and stuff like that. Small little guy, but it's been cool to experience my songs again for myself. I wrote them all down. I typed them all out. I wrote them. I did graphic design, and I did the whole book. And I also explained the songs. So I broke down the song names and the poems and stuff like that. Yeah. So every page is a duet of song structure, a full song break, not super detailed, but I really talked about where I was when I wrote this song, or what was happening when I wrote this poem, or there's specific dates on this. Oh, I wrote this when we were on the road in Ohio or whatever. So it was really meaningful. I had a merely meaningful experience with myself doing this book writing process, and I got vulnerable. I talked about some songs about cool. There was some heavy stuff in there for sure. Cause I wrote about a lot of heavy shit. Right. And, but it was meaningful in the sense that I haven't always gotten to explain all of the songs, cause I would pick and choose when I talked on stage, or sometimes I didn't talk at all because the time wasn't right or whatever. And and a lot of if we played at church, they would expect a certain message or whatever. I couldn't be like, hey, if you're coming from an abusive household, here's what you do or whatever, So I got a chance to talk about some of my own traumas and experiences and healing through this book. So full circle, closure with some of my stuff with the stepdad who was taking us to church, but he was also alcoholic and abusive. He passed away during the pandemic. And then I kind of wrote a song about his life without really knowing it was about that, I didn't realize it until after I had sung the song and recorded it. It's yet to be released still, but it's I did write that thing, and I wrote about it in the book too. It was like kind of like it was towards the end of the book, where I was like, wow, that was crazy to write about that, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's happening now. I'm signing
How do we get our
sending
hands
those
on a
people.
lyric book?
I mean, I have on Instagram, I have a link to it. It's on Kindle
Okay.
and Blurb and stuff like that. I have links, or I have physical copies here that I'm putting like personalized haiku in the beginning of the book and putting dogwood stickers in it. So I'm like still practicing my own writing too. So I get to write like a note and a haiku because I love writing haiku. It's a fun little poem expression for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good. And then on top of that, the Dogwood Building a Better Me vinyl just came out. Like we did a pre-order, and then on Halloween it's going to be open to the public to buy the vinyl of Building a Better Me. So that's huge news, right? So like that's really cool for us because Tooth and Nail had never put our records on vinyl yet, and so this will be the first one ever on vinyl for Dogwood. And then
is that you guys doing it yourselves, or is Tooth and Nail? Are they still around, or what?
Yeah, it's through Tooth and Nail, technically, because it's the Tooth and Nail record, and Unoriginal Vinyl kind of did the layout and the production of it all, and remastered and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. I wrote an essay for that, and that's in there.
That's cool.
And it looks beautiful. I just saw a copy today. And then on top of that, after Halloween, when that gets released to the public, with another label, People of Punk Rock Records, there's an official announcement, is we are releasing Through Thick and Thin on vinyl.
What?
So the one that we probably met you on was that record.
It came out a little bit after that. It was Good Old Days, 96, right?
Oh yeah, you played Good Old Days in the beginning. So Through Thick and Thin was right after that on Rescue. So that's going to be on vinyl like later this year after Building a Better Me sells.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of cool. So like one of our early records and one of our main records with Tooth and Nail, that's kind of really cool for the band. We don't know what the band future holds right now because we're not. The guys don't live in San Diego, so we're just kind of like taking it slowly. You know, there's no pressure because there's no label and stuff like that. We're all dads and jobs and stuff. So it's like, hey, you guys want to play? Sure. Okay, let's talk about it. You know,
nice.
when can we do it?
Are you writing? Are you still writing Dogwood songs that could be Dogwood songs?
I haven't written one specifically for the band because after the band kind of stopped playing, I just kind of kept writing music and kept playing concerts and stuff with people and going on stage and singing or writing stuff to record it because I didn't really want to lose that skill or that talent of letting it atrophy, you know. So I wanted to keep fresh and doing that. So just putting out stuff with other people. I did Saint Didicus was a side project with Danny and Joe from Slick Shoes and Mike from Fighting Jacks and stuff. So we did some songs that are out there, and that was cool. It was a just to kind of do stuff, but I write stuff and give it to other bands, or I'll write words and give it to other singers or whatever, just to keep fresh and to know how to do it. So I fiddle around in the studio and make music and songs and try to get my kids to sing stuff or whatever.
That's awesome.
But I just kept singing on featuring on different albums throughout this whole time.
That's cool.
So now hopefully I can shift that focus to, you know, if there's a need, if the guys want to do it, if we want to write Dogwood stuff, I'll do it for Dogwood. But I have always been writing like bunches of things. So it's been fun to keep doing that.
Now,
won't stop.
How do we eat your food?
Eating food. So the food it's a boutique catering company, right? So we got a couple food trucks, and we travel around anywhere from the border of Mexico to out, you know, the border of California on the side to Arizona, up to LA and Joshua Tree. So that's kind of our territory. We do everything. We do a lot of film productions and private event caterings for film companies and Comic-Con and lots of weddings and cool fun events for the industry. But I like to bring my punk rock element to each event. And so being like a punk rock chef is like, okay, you asked for barbecue, but did you ask, you know, here's how we do it. You got a huge open flame with a big fire on the side, but over here we're cooking because it's too close to the fire or whatever. Try to make it fun and a spectacle. Yeah. You wanted a show, you bought it, you bought us, you got a show, you know?
It's an experience.
Exactly.
I tell my wife all the time, you take the first bite with your eyes. You know,
yes, exactly. I try to tell people that we're gonna use all five senses on this tasting.
Yeah,
you know?
That's awesome.
We're gonna touch the glass. We're gonna smell the beer. We're going to sip it. We're going to taste the food. We're going to sip the beer, blah, blah. And here is the music to pair with that fish taco or whatever. So it's been really fun to do that, to know what I know about music now and what I had learned and then know what I know about food now and what I keep learning, I try to never stop learning, right? So how do I put those two together and make it relevant to people and like not just pretentious? Like,
Yeah.
here's the real way to taste food, because everyone has this experience already. You already know how to taste food with music. You go to a coffee shop, they're playing music. That's already a food and music pairing.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not be intentional on their part, but like it's in your brain.
It's part of the
You know?
experience.
You probably remember the day you ate that octopus. That was an experience ingrained into your system, right? So I think that's so I'm in North County, San Diego,
right?
So that's where the kitchen is based. So I always tell people, come by the kitchen. We'll have lunch together. I'll literally you can sit down with all me and all my chefs and have lunch together. A family.
I'll be there
meal,
in
right?
February.
Let's go.
I'm in.
So yeah. I do have people. They're always like, "Who's that, chef? Who's that? Is that another chef?" I'm like, "Nope, just one of my music friends." Or like, I met them at a beer dinner or whatever. So it's like, why not? Because we have all this food, and most of it's like, to be honest, most of it's like either gonna go bad or it's left over from an event. We just turn it into something else. We create our own fusion or whatever. We would make a carbonara out of whatever we had. But we don't. So we don't waste anything. Zero waste. We pickle. We make hot sauces. We make agua fresca. All the time. So
that's awesome.
Come on in for lunch, Harvest Kitchen. It's not open for lunch. It's more like if you know me and get an invite, then you can come in.
Typical catering environment. I know the space. Well, exactly. Then your podcast, The Family Cast. That's where you're chopping it up. You're talking food. I love your intro music where you say something that's absolutely an axiom of life, which is food and music is life. Which I wholeheartedly agree.
You get it.
You have all kinds of things going on there. Sometimes you're playing music. Sometimes you're talking with people that you've met throughout your journeys in music and food.
It's the perfect show for my ADHD.
Sell it.
It's a perfect show for me to release some ADHD energy. Yeah. But I have, I talked to a lot of friends who had the cross section of food and music, or like hospitality and the music industry. There happens to be a lot of us in San Diego, like people in a band that own a coffee shop or a distillery or a brewery or whatever. It's like, we should just record our conversation, kind of like you said, we should just record this. Or if I feel like I really need to talk to you about this music that I heard, I'm going to put this on here because it means something to me. Like, here's No Effects, The Cause, or, here's a new song from this new young band that I don't really know much about, but I heard it and I like it. You know? And I talk about, I can use it to talk about events that I'm doing with people, or I can talk about what's going on in the current events with the world or whatever. It's my space to just kind of journal a little bit, and record something not tangible necessarily, but something that might stick around for my kids to hear something more about me, that maybe they wouldn't ask me a question, but I can be a little bit more of myself, just talking and blabbing on my show, and the kids can be like, "Oh, I learned a story about you today. You're talking about your mom," or whatever, So if they listen, they'll hear something new about me, maybe, that they wouldn't have known otherwise.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to link that up. I got links to all your Instagram and Apple and Spotify, all that stuff. I'm excited to kind of share your story with the community that we're starting to develop at Suburban Kings. And thanks, Josh, for being on. I mean, it just, I think people don't realize the local hero, is still out there doing beautiful things. And I think it's awesome.
Hopefully.
So,
Are you a Suburban King?
That's my mantra right now. I'm not trying to, although I don't live in the suburbs anymore. I live in Portland, like in the hood. So it's a different experience.
He's from
raised
the
my
streets.
kids in the suburbs, but
got it. Okay.
Yeah. Now I'm in the streets. So, which is kind of, is more of a comfort zone for me, but
yeah, exactly.
But loving it. Well, thank you, Josh, for your time. All right. So that was Josh Kemble, Dogwood.
Man.
We'll have all those links in the show notes to his Instagram. He's got a link tree, his podcast. Go listen to it. Some great stuff. He kind of alternates between, like interview, and sometimes he's just exposing you to music, especially the kind of music he's into, which is punk. So I've been listening to a lot of his episodes and getting exposed to some new music. So great source for new stuff. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Yeah, Josh, thank you.
All right. This week's homework, John, this is for everybody that's listening. There's a movie. It's 1992. This is going to be one of the more palate forward homeworks we're going to do. I was first shown this by my philosophy professor in college. So it would have been in 96 or 98, because I think it was right my freshman year there, or 96, 97. And it's called Baraka. That's Baraka. And that is, it's, first off, there's no dialogue.
Oh boy.
This is a film with no dialogue. Okay.
Okay.
It is, you have to think of it as a moving painting with music and sound. So you get some of this, you get sound of what you're seeing.
A little bit of ASMR therapy in there.
Kind of. This is 1992. It predates that. But it tells a story, and at first you don't realize that until maybe halfway through you start to see, well, this is a progression. I am seeing a story here. So it's kind of like listening to a full orchestra, from Brahms or something that might be an hour long, and it's a bunch of different movements. And it's incredible. It's visually stunning. It was shot in IMAX. So if you can grab it in 4K and watch it on a TV that can support it, you want pretty good audio, but it's not like an action movie where you want to feel it, but because the visuals are really what matter. So the best setup you can see visually, big TV. And the other thing is you need to be with this like a piece of art, just if you just in a crowded museum and you walk by and glance at a painting for a minute, you're not going to get it. Especially some of I like Cubist painting. Cubism is kind of my favorite. And if you can sit there and get lost in it, it starts to tell you a story. This is like that. Like you have to sit there and be with this. Runtime is not super long. I wish IMDb would show me that, because offhand I don't have it here, but it's definitely under 2 hours. And it's in it because there's no dialogue. It's very family appropriate. It does have what old school National Geographic indigenous nudity will be in there a little bit. But in terms of that, it is just really freaking cool. And I picked it because of just my state of mind this week. I want to be connected to art. I want to be connected to the earth and humanity, and just feel and be connected to the beautiful things. And this is a kind of a brief history of humankind in visual form. They've made a couple other ones since. Baraka is my favorite. Samsara is one they made later. And this one is on a bunch of streaming. It keeps popping up. Right now it's on Peacock. It's on Prime. You can watch on Prime.
Awesome.
If you can avoid the commercial version by on Prime, that'd be great, because
it's kind of hard to go through a movement of humanity and nature, and then all of a sudden
that would be really disruptive.
You got to buy
if it's commercials at the front. I think Peacock will play commercials at the front if you're on their lowest plan, but then you get to watch it. But if you're just
if I'm in the middle of humanity, I might want a new T-Mobile plan. So
or some boner pills. So Baraka, that'll be linked in the show notes for everybody. It is, I've seen it a couple dozen times. Like it's a meditation on film, and it's pretty incredible. So I'm
looking forward to the homework. I think that's one of the things in this journey we're on together is I'm looking forward to finding some moments to just continue to dial in on like art, more traditional art, whether it be paintbrush, pottery, that kind of thing, or an art show or an art gallery. It's been a little while since I've found something, in that. And so that I'm glad you threw something at me more down that line. Music and
one of the missing pieces in Austin.
Yeah.
There's not a great museum in
art
Austin.
Scene. Yeah. The Blanton's good. Down on
small.
UT campus.
Yeah. It's a little bit small. And then the Jones Center is very tiny, but like a proper museum is missing in Austin. I was actually on a discovery committee for a nonprofit that was trying to form to actually build a museum in Austin. It just could never get to enough velocity to get exit speed. But Baraka, it is, if you can't get to a museum, this is a museum of natural history in one film. And just tune into this thing, turn the lights down. You could try and get your kids to watch it. They would have to put the phones away for it to make any sense, because it is, but man, if you can just be in the right headspace and just absorb this, Baraka. Highly recommend everybody go watch that. So we'll report back next week. And,
let's do this
on episode 14. So awesome, John.
Yes, thanks,
See you
Josh.
guys next week.
Thanks for being on, man.
Like, subscribe, share, whatever. Do all that stuff. We'll see you guys next week.
All right, see you, man.
Big stunner, 100. You stupid, just shut up. Keep breezy, I'm gonna. I'm big boy, done.